His two-day state visit to North Korea. We have the latest on what he did and what was said in his meeting with leader Kim Jong-un. President Moon Jae-in replaces two of his top aides related to economic affairs and policy amid slumping growth and poor employment figures. And alarm bells ring for Korea's exports, with outbound shipments set to fall for the 7th month in a row. It's 4 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Noah Lam, filling in for Devin Whiting. We start with Chinese President Xi Jinping. He has wrapped up his state visit to North Korea, though we don't have many details of what happened today. Let's turn to our Oh Jung-hee joining us from Seoul's Unification Ministry for more. Jung-hee, so Xi Jinping has left Pyeongyang?
Aram, you're right. We're hearing that Chinese President Xi Jinping wrapped up his two-day visit to North Korea and is right now returning to China as we speak. But this is the only update we've heard from North Korea, so we're not really sure what the leaders of China and North Korea did throughout the day today, but we do have a rough idea. So if things went as scheduled, then we're expecting that China's Xi Jinping pay tribute to the North Korea-China Friendship Tower in Pyongyang. This tower is a symbol of North Korea-China bilateral relations, as it was built in 1959 to commemorate Chinese soldiers who died fighting in the Korean War. China's high-level government officials have often visited the tower when visiting the North, including Xi Jinping himself in 2008 when he was China's vice president. North Korea's Kim Jong-un and President Xi could have had additional summit talks today along with the luncheon. If they did have those talks, then the topics would have been mainly about their bilateral ties and Korean Peninsula issues. As with their previous four summits when Kim Jong-un visited China, the two leaders have continued their summit into the following day. North Korea's state media has put a lot of emphasis on Xi's visit, saying it's a, quote, critical opportunity to show off their unchangeable and undefeatable friendship. This is the first visit by the Chinese leader to North Korea in 14 years and a fifth summit between Kim and Xi since 2018. The summit comes as Pyongyang and Beijing celebrate 70 years of their diplomatic ties this year. Aram, that's really all I have for now, but I'll make sure to bring you more updates throughout the day and during our later newscast. Back to you.
Well, thank you, Jung-hee. That was our Oh Jung-hee reporting from Seoul's Unification Ministry. Meanwhile, on day one of his visit to North Korea, President Xi agreed with Kim Jong-un that they need to continue to cooperate in order to solve key issues on the Korean Peninsula. Our EG1 reports.
During North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's first summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Pyongyang, Kim expressed his frustration with the currently stalled denuclearization talks with the United States. According to China's state-run CCTV, Kim said the regime has been taking lots of active measures first to ease the tension in the region over the past year. But it hasn't received positive responses from the party concerned, which is not what the North wants to see. The party concerned being the U.S. However, Kim added that the North remains patient while hoping Washington will work with Pyongyang to find solutions that accommodate each other's legitimate concerns and push for results from the dialogue process. Kim also reportedly said the North highly appreciates the important role China has played in solving the Korean Peninsula issue, adding Pyongyang will continue working and communicating with Beijing to move toward a political settlement. To that, Chinese President Xi Jinping said the issue is highly sensitive and complex, and a strategic and long-term perspective is required. Xi also expressed his full support for Kim by saying that China is willing to provide assistance within its capacity to address North Korea's legitimate security and development concerns. The North had said it is willing to give up its nuclear program once and for all if its security assurance is guaranteed. Xi also hinted at his willingness to play a larger role in the current talks by saying that Beijing will work with Pyongyang as well as other relevant parties to play a positive and constructive role in achieving the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and long-term stability in the region. The two leaders also mentioned their strong friendship and how they will work to improve North Korea's economy and well-being. Meanwhile, after their meeting ended, the two leaders took part in a welcome banquet where they once again reiterated that dialogue is the solution to settling the nuclear issue on the Korean Peninsula. After the banquet, the two first couples watched a mass gymnastics performance. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Pyongyang on Thursday morning, and Kim showed great hospitality and respect by greeting Xi at the airport and taking him to the Kumsusan Taeyang Gungjeon, the regime's forefathers' resting place. 이지원, Arirang News.
Now, the list of participants at the meeting between President Xi Jinping and leader Kim Jong-un on Thursday could suggest that, as well as politics, the two sides have also discussed economic cooperation. Our Korean explains.
Other than denuclearization, the list of attendees at the Kim-Xi Summit suggests that the two sides discussed about economic issues as well. According to China's state-run CCTV, participants included Choi Ryong-hae, the first vice chairman of the State Affairs Commission, and Premier Kim Jae-ryong. Amid tightening international sanctions, Kim Jong-un has emphasized the importance of economic development by pursuing self-rehabilitation, and Choi is tasked with putting those plans into action. Premier Kim Jae-ryong has been also working to resolve economic difficulties and improve people's livelihoods. Other than the summit attendees, another person in the spotlight was Chairman Kim's sister, Kim Yo-jong. Video footage from Thursday hints that her pull within the regime appears to have strengthened in recent months. Kim Yo-jong, who also serves as a senior Workers' Party official, was the seventh person in a line of key figures that shook hands with President Xi when he arrived at the airport. Standing next to her was high-ranking General Kim Young-chul. This is different from Kim Yo-jong's previous role when she was in charge of protocol, usually appearing before the official schedule. For instance, prior to the North Korea-US summit in February in Hanoi, she took care of preparations at Dongdang Station in Vietnam before Kim Jong-un appeared in front of the crowd. Her elevated role within the regime's power structure was strongly implied earlier this month, when North Korea expressed condolences to South Korea over the death of former First Lady Lee Hee-ho. Kim Yo-jong came to the inner Korean Truce village of Panmunjom to hand over flowers and messages to South Korean security officials. She was escorted by bodyguards, confirming her high status considering that deputy directors generally aren't protected by guards. As for Kim Yo-jong's replacement in terms of protocol, Hyun Song-wol, who heads the North Samjiun Orchestra, was at the airport for President Xi's arrival. She was spotted with Kim Chang-sun, Kim Jong-un's protocol chief. Korean Arirang News.
In other news, President Moon Jae-in will be visiting Japan for 3 days starting next Thursday for the G20 Summit in Osaka.
President Moon will stress the need for international cooperation and policy coordination in stabilizing the global financial system and easing trade frictions, and plans to explain the government's push to build an innovative and inclusive nation and its peace efforts on the Korean Peninsula.
During his stay there, the top official said the president is scheduled for bilateral meetings with the leaders of China, Russia, Canada and Indonesia. As for a meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, the Blue House added that it is keeping the door open, but said nothing has been finalized. Now, many factors are said to have played a big part in the South Korean under-20 football team's impressive performance at the recent under-20 World Cup, which got them to the final. They include Lee Gang-in's golden ball winning performance, the squad's resilience, and the tactical prowess of their head coach. But sports science has also played a key role in the team's success. Won Jung-hwan explains.
We know the physical coach always tries to give us good things, so even though it tastes a little bitter sometimes, we tried not to care about the taste so much.
This was what one of the South Korean U20 World Cup players said when he was asked about the taste of the carbohydrate-based drink the team had during the games. Fans at the welcoming ceremony wondered what the drink was and why the players had to drink it.
Why do you become tired? The main reason is the exhaustion of energy in your body, and one of the main sources of energy are carbohydrates. So the key is how fast and how efficiently you can refill the energy during games.
At the halftime in each match, the players drank the specially made carbohydrate-based drink while listening to what the coach had to say. The carbohydrates in the drink quickly enter the bloodstream and increase the glycemic index level back to where it was in the first half, ready for the next 45 minutes of combat. And this extra energy gave the team a timely boost. In fact, before the match against Senegal, people were worried about Korea's fitness as their opponents had an extra day of rest. But despite such concerns, the players' energy didn't drop in the second half, and they lasted all the way through the penalty shootout. Since then, some experts started to notice the drink and the cherry juice that physical coach Oh Sung-hwan handed out to the players after the matches.
So basically, cherry juice helps muscle recovery. If you drink it, an antioxidant effect will kick in inside the body and reduce oxidative stress, eventually helping those damaged muscles after the game.
Behind the U20 squad's dazzling performances in Poland were the marginal gains generated by sports science, which helped the team go further than any other men's team in Korean football history. 원정환, 아리랑 뉴스.
President Moon Jae-in has replaced 2 of his top aides, appointing new officials to serve as his chief of staff and top secretary for economic affairs. This comes amid various concerns over the slowing economy, compounded by external risks such as the US-China trade spat. Our Park Hee-jun with more.
As his administration enters its third year in power, President Moon Jae-in has replaced 2 of his top aides in hopes of creating concrete economic results. The Cheongwade announced Friday that Kim Sang-jo, who served as the chair of the Fair Trade Commission, will replace Kim Soo-yeon as the new presidential chief of staff. Blue House spokesperson Ko Min-jung explained that Kim was named mainly for his contributions in establishing a fair economy at his previous post. Creating a fair economy is one of the 3 pillars of the Moon administration's economic drive, along with income-led growth and innovative growth. Introducing himself to the public, Kim vowed to try and make policies that can be felt by the whole nation.
I will also listen to the voices of businesses, laborers, and civil society and work to create tangible outcomes for the people.
The first Vice Minister of Economy and Finance, Lee Ho-seung, will also replace Yoon Jong-won as Senior Secretary to the President for Economic Affairs. The Blue House anticipates Lee will play a big role in reviving the domestic economy amid growing economic uncertainty stemming from the US-China trade war, among other factors.
I will do my best to support the President's policies of sustained economic and social development alongside innovation and engagement.
The simultaneous reshuffle of the 2 top economic control towers is a rare move by the Blue House, especially as their predecessors are leaving without having stayed for more than a year. Kim Soo-yeon was appointed chief of staff last November, while Yoon Jong-won was appointed last June. Reflecting the government's determination to go all in to revive the economy, the new appointees are expected to continue pushing Moon's key economic policy forward and generating new momentum to boost the sluggish economy. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
South Korea's export growth has continued to slow due to contracting global trade and escalating US-China trade tensions. Kim Hye-sung has the details.
South Korea's exports are on track to fall for the 7th consecutive month. The Korea Customs Service said Friday exports between June 1st and June 20th fell 10% on year to $27 billion. Exports of automobiles and ships went up, but exports of semiconductors and petrochemical goods fell sharply. Another set of data released by the Trade Ministry Friday shows Korea's exports of information and communication technology products, including chips, displays, and mobile phones, plunged 22.6% on year to $14.3 billion in May. Exports of semiconductors, which account for a fifth of the country's exports, plummeted 30% on year on falling global demand and falling prices. Spot prices of 4 gigabit DRAM chips fell to $2 in May, down from $3 in January. By region, South Korea's ICT exports to Vietnam edged up 2%, but shipments to China tumbled 31% to $7 billion. Those to the US and the EU also fell by double digits.
Markets were expecting a rebound in chip prices and demand in the latter half of the year, but with continuing trade tensions between the U.S. and China and growing uncertainties, companies have postponed their investment in facilities and data centers, so demand for ICT goods is unlikely to rise soon.
While global trade is likely to slow down this year, the Bank of Korea has released its preliminary data on its trade balances with major countries for 2018. South Korea recorded a total current account surplus of $76 billion last year, slightly up from the figure posted in 2017. The current account surplus against the U.S. contracted to a 6-year low as South Korea purchased more raw materials. The current account surplus against China and Southeast Asia went up on chip and petrochemical exports. South Korea's current account deficit against Japan and the EU narrowed. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
South Korea and Russia have started free trade talks for the service and investment sectors. Korea is looking to diversify its export portfolio and cope with growing protectionism around the world. The announcement by Seoul's Trade Minister Yoo Myung-hee earlier today comes after the two countries agreed to start such negotiations last June. The recent talks with Moscow are the latest in a series of efforts by Korea to expand its FTA networks and reduce its trade dependency on the US and China. The discussions are also part of Korea's so-called New Northern Policy that aims to boost ties with Eurasian nations. Many Koreans are becoming more concerned over the safety of consumer products, especially after several mattresses were found to have contained radioactive material. This has led them to go the extra mile for products that have been proven to be safe, even if they cost a bit more. Our Kim Da-mi takes a closer look at the latest consumption trend.
Paying for peace of mind, meaning consumers are willing to spend more on products that are proven safe, especially in the era of distrust in production and manufacturing. This local chicken franchise fries only 58 portions of chicken with each batch of oil to reassure customers that their chicken is cooked with clean, fresh oil. This is the 45th portion of chicken that's been fried using this oil. And after 13 more portions, the old oil will be replaced. Each portion of chicken is served with a sticker that indicates how many times the oil it was fried in has been used. The sticker is more than just a number to the customers.
I've heard some chicken places only replace their oil once every 3 or 4 days, but just knowing they use new oil after every 58 portions gives us peace of mind, especially when we're eating it.
Consumers are even more careful when shopping for what they spend 1/3 of their life on, mattresses. After the raid on emitting mattresses scandal occurred in South Korea last year, safety concerns and complaints related to mattresses rocketed over 700% compared to the previous year. Responding to the deep concerns and mistrust among consumers, a bedding company has publicized its mattress lab where people can actually see and experience how their mattresses are made, a chance for potential buyers to see that its ads are not misleading or false.
I'm a newlywed looking for a new bed for a new home. Because I can see how my bed is produced, I can tell that it's safe. Mattresses are quite expensive, but I've decided to invest in one after the tour today.
Consumers have learned to spend their money more consciously and carefully, but this consumption trend should also remind the marketing and manufacturing industries that it is their job to be transparent and earn consumers' trust. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
It's now time to take a look, an in-depth look at the markets, the major issues this week and more. And for that, I'm happy to be joined in the studio by Dr. Kim Se-wan, economics professor at Ewha Women's University. Thank you for coming in today, Dr. Kim.
You're welcome.
Let me start off with the US-China trade war. It's intensifying. There seems to be no resolution to it yet. The leaders of both nations will meet at the G20 Summit next week in Japan. Xi Jinping, Chinese President Xi Jinping has just wrapped up his trip to North Korea.
Right.
And eyes will definitely have been on whether that will play a part or have an effect on the trade negotiations between Beijing and Washington. Do you think President Xi could use his trip to North Korea as leverage for upcoming trade negotiations?
I think so. President Xi's visit to Pyongyang is very high-level diplomatic and economic gesture against United States and South Korea. As we have seen recent Hong Kong's massive street demonstration against Chinese government, U.S. government's comments on that demonstration gave a kind of pressure on Chinese government's negotiation strategy with the United States. So President Xi wants to show off his and China's power, geopolitical power in Far East area to have a better leverage with the trade negotiation with the United States.
Now, let's move on to the Federal Reserve. It has kept its interest rates steady for now, but
Right.
it has hinted at possibly future rate cuts. They are citing possible risks stemming from the trade spat with China and other
Right.
geopolitical risks as well. If they were to cut rates in the future, will this force the Bank of Korea here to follow suit and ease monetary policy? And if the Bank of Korea does, when do you think it will come and by how much?
That really depends on the result of two summits meeting in G20 Osaka. The Bank of Korea has really worried about the risk increase due to the negotiations between China and the United States. And that gives a really huge negative impact in global economy, particularly on South Korean economy. But if the result of the two summits meeting is really no good as a worst scenario, there is very high possibility that U.S. Federal Reserve will cut interest rate in the middle of July next month. So Bank of Korea will try to cut the interest rate of South Korea after seeing that with some negative signs from South Korean economy. If they begin to cut the interest rate, they will further cut interest rate by another 0.25% by the end of the year.
Now, let's look at things here in Korea. Household debt in the country continues to be a problem. Although
Right.
the rate of the debt increase has slowed somewhat recently,
Right.
the amount of debt is still quite high nonetheless. Also, more companies are also struggling to pay off
Right.
their debt. So it's not just households, individuals, it's also with companies as well. Are we in danger of increased credit risks, and what else should we look out for?
Well, according to Bank of Korea's Financial Market Stability Report released yesterday, as you said, the risk of household debt is kind of weakened compared to that of the last year because South Korean government's very strict regulations on mortgage loans. However, on the other side, the risk of the loans from marginal firms that do not pay their interest debt from their business activities is increasing very quickly. In addition, the self-employees business risk is very much increasing with higher default risk. So these two risks are increasing very quickly. So that should be considered further from government's policies.
Now, the government says it will boost manufacturing. President Moon Jae-in announced his so-called manufacturing renaissance vision recently, and he's wanting to implement that plan to revitalize the Korean economy. And his administration is also aiming to make Korea the world's fourth largest manufacturing nation within the next 11 years, so by the year 2030. Why the manufacturing sector, and why now?
The strongest part of the Korean economy has been manufacturing, represented by like Samsung Electronics and Hyundai Motors. But manufacturing has been weakened internationally due to not market-friendly regulations from governments and international competition, particularly with China. So to maintain our economic growth momentum, it is extremely important to improve the manufacturing structure along with new introduction of high-tech manufacturings like 3D printers and IoTs and so on.
Now, in order to assess how practical President Moon's so-called manufacturing renaissance vision is, we will have to look at the details of the plan. As we always say, the devil's in the detail.
Right.
Are there any ideas or any areas where there should be improvements?
Well, rebuilding manufacturing sector requires introduction of the new industry, particularly high-tech industries like IoTs, 3D printers, and self-driving automobiles, and so on. That means these new manufacturing industries competing with previous old-fashioned industry. So government has to have and build up their own power and ability to managing conflicts with different industries. Without that, it is very difficult to implement new manufacturing policies.
Right. All right, Dr. Kim, that's where we'll have to leave things for now. We appreciate your insights. Thank you for coming in today.
Thank you very much.
And that's where we're going to leave things for now at this hour. Thank you as always for watching. I'll be back with Han Daeun at 7 p.m. Korea time for Arirang News Center, so stay tuned.